I go home.
Hi, everybody. Chad Westport, and I'm back again today with another episode of Just One Thing. And I've got a really exciting guest for you, somebody who I have learned a lot from. He's a man who has earned his PhD. He's lived and worked in peasant farming communities and taught university level horticultural classes. So, definitely a good person to listen to. And we're lucky enough to have him here today for his Just One Thing. So, Dr. MJ Coco, thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing. And can you tell everybody about your just one thing you think all new growers should know about?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I think this is a cool format and an interesting sort of take to doing some content. So yeah, if I have just one thing, I want to go with my sort of guiding principle to growing in a lot of ways, which is consistency. Plants like consistency. They like things to be basically the same. That's actually one of the advantages of growing indoors rather than growing outdoors, is we can be so consistent. We can keep the climate, we can keep the light, we can keep the water, the moisture, the fertilization, everything really, really consistent, and get absolutely explosive growth from the plants. So with a lot of things, with the climate, you want to keep it within a consistent range. With the soil moisture, the medium moisture, and the watering that you're giving, you want to keep that consistent, not go to the extremes. Stressing the plant out slows the plant down. And then, in certain ways, we have to change. There are certain times when we have to change the lighting, for example, on autoflower, on photoperiod plants, to go from vegetative to flowering growth. And oftentimes you're going from 18, 20, or even 24 hours of lights on time to only 12. That's a big change. And it sort of violates the principle of consistency. So whenever I have to make a change like that, I try to make the changes gradually. I try to ease plants into things like the flip. So I walk my plants a couple extra hours of darkness a day over a few days to get there, as opposed to sort of a sudden change. Some people I know put their plants into darkness for an extended period of time with the flip, and I think that's sort of really counterintuitive and counterproductive. So keeping things consistent with your fertilization, keeping the levels consistent, keeping the type of water that you give consistent. I know a lot of growers that fertigate. So when they provide nutrients in with the water, they'll alternate fertigation with plain water and fertigation with plain water. And that's not consistent in terms of the salinity that the plant is going to be exposed to. So it'd be better to fertigate at a lower dosage, lower EC in every single time. Those kinds of trying to achieve consistency, keep the plants sort of humming in that perfect zone.
And you said, kind of like consistency with watering and with fertilizing as well. What are maybe a couple tools or a couple methods you use to keep that consistency?
Well, I literally use a timer to do my watering. So one of the things about growing in cocoa is that you can, there's not the same risks of overwatering that you have in a lot of other media. And it's best to keep it sort of close to 100% saturated. So keep it, on a timer with, I calculate that sort of frequency of the events based on making sure that the electrical conductivity isn't going to swing too much. You want to keep the electrical conductivity consistent. And keeping sort of, in order to do that, you keep the moisture level within the media consistent. Now, some media, by their very nature, don't allow as much consistency. And that sort of is a strike against the media in certain ways. Every media has its sort of pros and cons, but to the extent that certain medias or certain preparations of media really require a big dry back before you can water again. That sort of swing between moisture levels and water availability and oxygen availability in the root zone isn't consistent and slows the plant down. And a lot of the things that when plants aren't sort of perfectly happy, you won't know it. They'll be growing, they'll look fine, they just won't be going quite as fast as they could be, because they're adjusting to things. They're adjusting to a change of salinity in the root zone, a change in the EC. If it's not that huge of a change, they can make the adjustment and still look like perfectly happy plants, but they're not growing as fast as they would have been if they hadn't been sort of swinging around and adjusting to the constant change. EC and PPM is the same thing. I don't want to get sort of far down a different rabbit hole, but for new growers, it's important to sort of understand that we're measuring the same basic thing there. Measuring the inflow and the outflow electrical conductivity is sort of the data that I use to drive the grow and to be able to determine fertigation frequency, and to a lesser extent, things like, levels of nutrition.
And so that actually sounds like another place where consistency matters. You're looking for a consistent reading of what goes in versus what comes out.
Exactly. And you want to keep that within a nice range that's going to be sort of a consistent experience for the plant. If the electrical conductivity is changing by like 300 microsiemens, the plant's going to be able to adjust to that on a 24-hour cycle without too much hardship. But if it's swinging, 800 points or, 1 millisiemen, that's going to be harder and really adjust and affect the plant's growth. Even if you don't see plant damage. See, a lot of growers like push plants and they think that they're pushing them as like fast as they can go, right up until the point that they start to see like damage to their plants. By the time you start seeing damage, that plant's been struggling for a while. I mean, that plant's like well past the point of like optimal growth. There's that, whole period where it's compensating for things before it gets damaged. I used to have data sheets where every day I'd record, high, low temperature that the grow tent had, EC in, EC out numbers, measured the plants and be able to see the rate of growth and stuff like that. It's easy to get lazy on collecting all of that data through the years. So having that and being forced to sort of go through and recording that data really, kept me aware of it and let me see little patterns and things that was happening within my grow space. So keeping track of the data within your grow, the things that you think you're trying to keep consistent that are important, the standard operating procedures. Most of us follow recipes for a lot of things within our grows. Basically what a standard operating procedure is. You always continue to learn when you're growing. So take every grow in your garden as an opportunity to learn something new, learn something about plants, and have fun with it.
I just want to let everybody know where they can find some more information from you. Also, guys, these are going to be down in the show notes. But first of all, YouTube, we have Dr. MJ Coco. On Instagram, it's also at Dr. MJ Coco, spelled the same way you see it there. And the website, which, I started this by saying I've learned a lot from you. This is the website I learned it from, cocoforcannabis.com. So everybody check that one out as well.
Come on over to Coco for Cannabis, check out, our forums and our grow challenges and our chat room and stuff like that. And a lot of good growers that are interested in helping everybody out.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Thank you for helping me out today. And thank you for helping everybody watching out. I definitely appreciate that. And party on.
Absolutely. Happy to do a chat and grower love, everyone.
Right.
Ah.